Okay, welcome everyone. What this tutorial is going to kind of lead us into is creating a template for a website using CSS purely, focusing on the float property as it relates to divisions within our website. So the first thing we're going to do is using Dreamweaver that we introduced yesterday, we're going to kind of change projects, and we're going to actually manage several of them. So we already have Creative 01. As you can see, I have one here called Menu Lab, and that was something for myself. We're going to create one called Float Lab. Okay, so what we're going to do is going to come down here and you're going to click Manage Sites. And what we're going to do is you're going to click New. And from that point, you're going to call this Float Lab. Okay, just like a boat. And then you're going to click the folder. At this point, we actually are going to make a folder, and so you're going to navigate to your G drive. So you can click, this PC over here. Mine is called Computer, and then you're going to scroll down to your name. You're going to go into your Web Design folder, HTML assignments, and then at that point, you're either going to click Create New Folder. You can also right-click and say New Folder. But either way, you need to make a new folder and put it where you are organizing your project's files. Mine, of course, at this point doesn't fit that model. So I'm going to call this Float Lab, just like that. And then I'm going to open it and then select it. Now, there's nothing inside this, okay, but we are just, once again, setting up a new project that we've not created any files for. So we're going to hit Select, and at that point, we are done. We don't have to configure anything else. You're just going to hit Save and done. Okay, and now at this point I want you to take notice when you drop down in your file viewer that you most likely at this point have Creative 01 that we set up yesterday. If you click on it, you can see all the files and contents that belong to that specific project, right? And as an independent project, if you click and drop this down, go to Float Lab, you'll see that it's empty. Okay, at this point, we're going to make an images folder just so that it's there. So we're going to right click in here, and you should be able to say New Folder, and just call it Images, lowercase images. Excuse me. We're also going to right click again and make another folder called Styles, lowercase. And I unfortunately had the images folder selected when I did that, so I don't want to. I'm going to press Escape. This Untitled, I'm going to press Delete and say yes. Okay, so now that it's gone, I'm going to right click on the Site Float Lab top folder, New Folder, and we're going to call this Styles. Okay, and now we have the two folders that we're going to need, and we don't have any HTML files yet, and that's kind of the point what we're kind of like leading up to. So at this point, we are going to create a CSS sheet for this specific project in conjunction with the HTML that goes with it. This is going to be an external CSS type of arrangement where we're going to have a CSS style sheet inside styles that's going to control all of the pages that we do make for this, and we might just stay with one and keep this as a template for when we do independent creative work. We're going to merge our menu that we made. We're going to reuse our menu that we made from the previous project, our Creative 01. And we're going to kind of keep going back to Creative 01 throughout the quarter. However, we're kind of jumping into this one right now just to make a generic template using a different strategy. And we're going to take the menu from the previous project, the Creative 01, and we're going to incorporate that into this project. And this specific assignment and experience is kind of bring you through that. I'm going to walk you through it. So first thing, we're going to drop this down. We're going to go to Creative 01, and we're going to open up our index. Now at this point, you need to understand that if you haven't been following the projects and completing the projects in the order that I've asked, I'm depending on things that other projects created. So you need to ask yourself, do you have a menu in your Creative 01 folder that works, like I'm going to show you here? Maybe color-wise it's different, but the menu looks similar to this, and the colors could be different, but at least the menu works, right? And then because the menu works, you understand that it is referencing an external CSS style sheet that lives in your styles folder. So if you don't have that currently, you need to stop working on this specific activity and go back and take care of the previous ones that I've assigned, because what I'm talking about relates to those assignments. And if they aren't done, those are ingredients that we're going to need for this project. You won't be able to do it. Okay, so with that understood, what we're going to do is, once again, we're going to take our style sheet from our old one, and we're going to use some of it, if not all of it, to kind of add to our new project. So we have our creative one folder open. We have our styles folder open with our style CSS that's visible, so we know it's there. I've double-clicked index.html, as you can see here, and the source code is what I'm looking at, right? So it's got our menu. It has some paragraphs, and it has images. Don't worry about this div class relative and absolute. We're going to kind of play with those at a different point. I'm just pre-planning. So at this point, this is the file that is used to control our menu. Okay, that's the only reason why it's there. We could rename that and call it the menu CSS to be a little bit more organized. But we're not going to at this point, but we could. So we're going to take the CSS. If you look, this index.html has a source code, which is the HTML we're looking at, and it is using a CSS. The only reason why these buttons are here and why there's a CSS button is because this external link exists. So this document knows that it depends on this file, and that's why it says it right here. If I were to pull this out and save it, I probably would have to, let's close this. Let's open it back up. You'll notice it's gone, right? There's no CSS button because it doesn't use it. As soon as I paste that back in, save it, and now when I reinitialize or open it back up, it's there again. And the only reason why it's there is because of this one line of code. This file could potentially not even exist, and it would still work in terms of a button. You click on it, you wouldn't see anything. Okay? So anyway, we're going to go over here. And if you take a look, minus the absolute image padding and all of this stuff, okay, our menu, actually including relative, our menu is this. And that's probably everything that you have. You don't have relative, absolute, image padding, or top image, or rounded image, or ellipse image. That's stuff that I'm playing around for future lessons. However, this right here, this is what makes up your menu. So I want you to highlight all of it. Okay? The UL rules, the list item rules, the list item with anchor rules, the list item with anchor hover behavior rules. We're going to copy this, Control C, or you can right click and say copy. Okay? And just for probably simplistic sake, so you don't get these confused this early on, we're going to close this entire file. We just copied it. We didn't do any editing. We just copied. We're going to go over to our new menu lab folder. I'm sorry, our new float lab folder. We're going to make a new CSS document. And you're just going to right click and paste the rules from the previous CSS into this one. We're going to add more to this, but we want to have our menu set up. And if you look at this, this is how CSS comments are done. So I want you to comment this out. I want you to do /* menu CSS starts here. Okay? And then you're going to do */ and then copy that, paste it below, and then just double click this and call it, type stops. At this point, now you can see that the CSS for the menu starts here and it stops here. So all of this, as you're reading, will apply to the menu. Okay, so for a week from now, or 2 weeks from now, a month from now, you'll be able to open this up and understand this. Okay, so at this point, we're going to save this file, save as, and because this is relative to the project we're working on, we have the file folders we just made. So styles is empty. We're going to open this up, and you're just going to call this style at the moment .css. I want you to add the extension at this point because it could be any one of the ones that are listed here. So make sure you add this just like that. Hit save. And you can see the file is right there. We can close it now. At any time, we can open it up and edit this. Okay? So, at this point, I want you to start building the HTML structure for our page that we're going to modify and make it actually look very similar to this here. Okay? So we're using the float as the method to kind of keep these things in the location that they are. So we're going to focus on what divs are, what classes are, how it relates to the CSS, and how it keeps these in order. And we can add content inside the individual columns. Let's see here. I'm going to show you by adding content right now. I just don't want to copy or type this over and over again. Right? If I run it, you can see that there's content in here. So we can put images, we can put text, and we can keep them kind of divided into 3 different, I'd say, real estate or territory spaces on your browser window. Okay. Now if you look up above here, there's some CSS that relates. Okay, as you can see, body relates to a specific body tag. Okay. This is going to focus on the header. Okay. And as you can see, class equals header. At this point, anything that you see a period will actually define a class. We'll also be talking about IDs coming up probably in a future lesson. Once we kind of understand why we need classes, because sometimes we don't need these rules to apply to every single specific tag. Only when we call the classification header does it actually apply. Okay, so if you can take a look, this division is a header division because it's being defined as a class. So we're going to be doing this. I'm going to provide you the code so that you can build this in your Dreamweaver environment. And you want to pay really close attention to making sure the classes are spelled properly, the styles attributes are spelled properly, the style attribute and the properties, the colors, paying attention to the quotations and so forth, and the structure. And then in terms of the content that goes inside here, you can type this exactly, or you can kind of add your own, but once again, I'm going to basically ask that you make this so that it can be saved and used later for making creative websites. And once again, we're going to be pulling in the menu into this code as well. So what you need to understand is where you're going to be putting the menu. And the menu, if we understand, okay, the header, we're going to leave this. Whatever we put into this area, and I run it, you can see that it's going to give it a large specific visibility on the front page. So this is kind of like a page title, maybe in replacement of a banner. However, the header class, let's go up to header and take a look. The header class has a 35 pixel font size. So if you don't like that and you want to modify your design, you could change this to something less or greater. And you can see that it will affect it. Okay, so anything that's inside that specific division, the rules for header class will apply. Same thing with color. Okay, the background color, I'm just going to change this to like something different. Okay, as you can see, these are the red values, these are the green values, and these are the blue values. We'll talk more about hexadecimal color and what that actually means in another day. So at this point, this concludes the video because I'm going to provide you a print out a handout of the HTML structure, and then at a future video that I will link and add this to a playlist, you will follow to build the CSS. So let's get the HTML structure built, and you're going to do this in Dreamweaver. We are getting away from Notepad++. Okay, until then, have a good